Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this is Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things underneath the common sense lens. And man, I'll tell you what, I probably, like many of you out there, was absolutely loved the original Transformers movie out there from Bay, the first one that came out in the late 2000s out there, because I remember I went and saw the movie at the theaters. I was literally in tech school in the Air Force at the time, and I absolutely loved that movie. I got to go see it in the theaters with some of my Air Force friends at the time, surrounded by literally an entire theater of nothing but Navy guys. And man, that line when he goes, we can't do this without the Air Force. Literally our entire row just kind of like, she was like, and all the rest of the Navy guys were like, "Grr." And it was so awesome. It was wonderful. It was an experience I will never forget and something that I will absolutely cherish. And we have Michael Bay to thank for that. The other problem about that is, though, is that Michael Bay is also responsible for a lot of the garbage that came after that movie. A lot of the scenes out there with Michael Bay and, of course, all of his lens flare that he has to do in absolutely every single movie that he does. And, of course, one of the problems when you actually start to go back and look at some of those movies and kind of critique them, there may be something a little bit of a kind of a hindsight 2020 kind of situation out there. You start to realize some of the flaws and some of the issues with those movies, especially one of the biggest issues that a lot of people complain about across the board with all of those movies is the fight scenes, right? They move so fast, they're so blurry, it's hard to really see that. And as a guy who's a fan of some of the Transformers comics, especially the new era under the Energon universe, if you have not read those, please, for the love of heaven, do yourself a favor. Go support your local comic book shop and go check them out. They are so good. They are written by a fan. They are by a group of fans. The art is incredible. All your characters are exactly who you've always known them to be, loved and loved them to be, and you're just going to have a really, really great time. But needless to say, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, what Michael Bay did obviously put a very sour taste in a lot of fans' mouths out there. Obviously, the movies had a continual decline and ended up doing worse and worse. Well, after Michael Bay has now gotten fired from Netflix, boys and girls, because of creative differences, they've parted ways with his Netflix and Will Smith project. Well, of course, now he's open to do more things. And so Michael Bay is allegedly in talks to return to do even more damage and destruction to the Transformers franchise that he hasn't already done. And this is something that I've been saying for quite a while, especially since I've been reading the Transformers comics out there. Paramount, if you want to do a proper adaptation, get a hold of the creative guys behind the current comic book run out there and tell them you want to give them all the resources they want to make a movie that is properly accurate to the comics that they are currently writing, because that, ladies and gentlemen, will end up being a $1 billion movie. Michael Bay is not the hit he once was, because guess what? He's a one-trick pony, and a lot of the audience, customers, and most importantly, fans have figured it out, and they're not exactly going to be excited about this. So hopefully the new Skydance people that are in charge of Paramount now will listen to the fans and maybe avoid this kind of disastrous dumpster fire. But at the end of the day, we will see what happens, boys and girls. Because as you can see over here from CosmicBook.News, Michael Bay in talks for Transformers reboot. And yes, boys and girls, it just doesn't come from like Hot Mic Podcast or some of that kind of nonsense. No, this actually comes from a legacy media trade organization, and they generally don't print things unless they've got it on pretty good authority. This is a very real possibility. So we're taking this article from CosmicBook.News, getting all the juicy details and see exactly what this all has to say. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2,100. I think we're sitting at like 2,125 on our way to 2,200, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Did you enjoy all of the Michael Bay movies? Are you excited about his return to the franchise? Or do you, like a lot of other Transformers fans out there, think this could be a very bad idea and is not something we really particularly want to see? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. Also, if you're reading the Transformers current run over there on the comic books, let us know if you are doing that and what you think of it as well. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, please let us know. Please check out the links in the description as well. All right, from Matt McGloin over there at CosmicBook.News, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Bay is said to be officially back in discussions with Paramount about returning to the Transformers franchise. The update comes as Bay parts ways with Netflix and Will Smith on the long-delayed action movie Fast and Loose. That's very kind. Bay's been fired. Bay drops out of Fast and Loose. Fast and Loose was supposed to reunite Bay and Smith for the first time since Bad Boys, but creative differences ended the deal, according to Deadline. Bay wanted the film to be more action-heavy. Smith preferred to leaning into the comedy. Oh, so Fast and Loose is literally just going to be another Bad Boys clone. Ooh, so original. Yay. Maybe Bay actually had the right idea on this one. Netflix is still aiming to shoot the project in October and is now looking for a new director. Smith remains attached to star as the man with no memory. One covers he's been living two lives, one as a cartel kingpin and one as a CIA agent. Also, a story trope we've seen done several times and probably will end up being done better by other people in the past. With Fast and Loose behind him, Deadline confirms the rumors that Bay is now discussing with Paramount a return to the Transformers fold with a new version of that tentpole. So I guess if nothing else, at least it won't be a continuation of some of the garbage and some of the damage he's done to the Transformers lore with some of his past movies out there. But at the exact same time, considering he was the guy kind of responsible for all of that, I don't know how many fans are actually going to be willing to give him a shot at this kind of thing. I don't know. At the end of the day, we'll have to end up waiting and seeing what happens. That lines up with recent reports claiming there are 5 different Transformers projects in development at the studio, including a possible G.I. Joe crossover and another live-action film from Transformers 1 director Josh Cooley. Also would be a very bad idea. Now, the G.I. Joe crossover and another live-action film, the idea of that would be a lot of fun, actually, because right now, the way the comics are working, which, by the way, they're excellent, including the Energon Universe stuff, as well as the G.I. Joe comics as well, those are all in the same universe right now inside of the comic book. So you could honestly do that. And I don't know if I'm trying to remember. I'm not fully caught up with the current run of Transformers yet, but I don't think they've interacted with the G.I. Joe guys yet. But I think there have been some hints in the G.I. Joe comics that the Transformers are currently active on the planet and stuff like that. But I also haven't read all the G.I. Joe comics either. So if you guys know about that for sure, if the crossovers actually happened so far, let me know. But I don't think so. I think I would have heard about that if the full-blown crossover would have actually happened already. But at the end of the day, that's something that is going to eventually happen in the comics. You're going to see the G.I. Joe crew team up with the Transformers to go back out there and try to fight their fellow enemies. You're going to end up seeing Cobra Commander team up, of course, with the Decepticons. You're going to have some big epic kind of crossover battle. And then at some point, all of the heroes from the Energon universe are going to come in and it's going to be some big epic crazy thing. And if you want to do something like that, those are the comics to adapt. But if you're going to do a crossover like that, if that is going to be your long-term plan, then you need to get a hold of somebody that's going to adapt those G.I. Joe comics properly and just basically just use them as storyboards, right? That's all we ever asked for as comic book fans when you do our adaptations, right? Just use the storyboards. Make it a one-for-one thing. It works out great for anime when they adapt mangas out there. And I mean, it's like a literal billion-dollar industry that is crushing the Western market out there in entertainment right now. So I don't know. Here's a strange concept. If it's working for them, maybe you should try. Maybe you should put your narcissism, your ego, and your pride to the side and actually try to do that and make the fans happy. I know, strange concept. The nice part about it is if you did pull somebody from the current comic book run of that kind of stuff, they would probably be perfectly okay with adapting that. And honestly, at the end of the day, if you're just going to do an adaptation like that, you don't need a guy like Michael Bay who's going to want to reinvent the wheel and do his own personal version. Just find a guy that's good at adaptations. Zack Snyder's a prime example of a guy that if you give him like Watchmen, right? Yeah, he changed a few things, but for the most part, he stuck to the story. You know, obviously Snyder's going to cost you a lot of money and Paramount's broke right now, but you get the idea of the kind of example I'm talking about here. You could literally just find one of those guys out there that's good at doing adaptations, right? And just go, hey, here's the G.I. Joe comics. Here's the first run. Here's the first run, the first run that we've got so far. The full overarching story of this first run that we've got here. Adapt this into a movie. Adapt this into a trilogy if you have to. Let's make some good quality G.I. Joe movies that the fans are going to know and love. At the exact same time, you do the parallel route, right? You give somebody else the exact same thing. You go, hey, here's the current Transformers comic book runs. Take this story, take this run, and adapt it. Here's $150 million. Have at it. Make us a good movie. If you do a good job and the first one makes money, we'll let you adapt the rest of the run, and you'll get to make a trilogy. You know what I mean? Do a good job. Adapt it like we tell you, and you'll get to be famous, and we'll make you a whole bunch of money. Like, it's not rocket science out there. And if they did that, dude, and just follow the comics, you will have not only one of the most successful movies in the Transformers and G.I. Joe history, but you will also have one of the most epic crossovers of all time that is going to make all of the fans extremely happy and make all of you over there at Skydance Paramount extremely rich. The real question is, will pride and ego allow that? Hollywood isn't exactly been very good about setting any of those things aside to actually make the fans and customers happy. But hey, even this humble common nerd can dream after all, boys and girls. Bay directed the first 5 Transformers movies from 2007 to 2017, which earned over $4 billion globally. While the later entries underperformed, yeah, they did. Paramount is still betting on the franchise's brand value, especially with the Skydance merger looming. And then there's nothing wrong with betting on the Transformers franchise. I mean, the comics are keeping it alive and well and returning it to the cultural zeitgeist. I mean, anybody that's read that new Transformers comic book run knows it is great and knows that it is in a very great place. Maybe it's a little harsh for a few people out there, but it's the characters doing what you expect them to do. And if you go back and watch some of the stuff that the Decepticons did back in the day, they might have not shown you the blood and gore, but yeah, they were out there murdering humans all of the time, dude. Like, it was not uncommon. And come on, all of those, just because you didn't see the dead bodies, those explosions they caused definitely ended a lot of humans' lives out there. And they had no problem with that whatsoever. They're supposed to be villains. They're not supposed to be redeemable. Then guess what? That's exactly what we get from the Decepticons in these new Transformers comics. They are crushing it. It is absolutely insane, boys and girls. And I guarantee you, if they adapt those properly and faithfully, you'll get yourself $1 billion Transformers. You'll get yourself $1 billion G.I. Joe film on your hands, because they will be just that good. In addition to Transformers, Bay is developing Outrun at Universal, a movie based on the classic video game. Sydney Sweeney is attached to star, with Bay producing alongside Brad Fuller, and Jason Rothwell is writing the script. So there we go, boys and girls. It sounds like Paramount is seriously considering bringing Michael Bay back in for the Transformers reboot. And honestly, it's one of them situations where producing, directing, whatever, if they actually do the story well and you don't do all the crazy fight scene stuff, it wouldn't be that bad out there. But at the end of the day, if you want to do a proper G.I. Joe and Transformers crossover, you're going to have to adapt the current run of comics out there, because that's exactly what they're leading to. And they're doing an incredible job. Those comics are selling better than they have in probably 20 years, if not even longer out there. And that's even with the massive decline that we have seen in the American comic book industry because of the decisions the big two like DC and Marvel have made over the past couple of decades. So at the end of the day, boys and girls, Transformers can be made great again. And Skydance and Paramount, with this new merger right now, with the purge of all the diversity, inclusion, and equity jobs, Skydance flat out saying we don't have any of those kind of jobs at our company, then we will not have any of those in the future. We are just going out there and doing typical HR stuff, and we're going to stick to the letter of the law as far as discrimination and hiring practices are concerned. We're not going to have any kind of quotas. We're not going to have any kind of agendas when it comes to this kind of stuff. Now, is that going to stop the creatives that they hire forcing their agenda into things? No, but at the end of the day, these executives do still have the ability and the knowledge, based on what's been going on inside the Hollywood and cultural sphere over the last few years, to understand what is working and what doesn't. And these young kids that are coming in and going to be in charge of things, I hope they understand that, because if they're smart, if they actually listen to the fans, if they listen to the audiences, and if they are actually nerds that are willing to go out there and understand the fan base, like some of the rumors tell us that they are, well, boys and girls, we might end up getting us some good quality Transformers going in the future. But honestly, at the end of the day, I think Michael Bay is a step in the wrong direction. But I want good Transformers, and I'm willing to give anything a shot, and I'm not willing to judge a product before he produces it. But at the end of the day, as we've seen happen so many times a game, Michael Bay really does seem to be a one-trick pony. And ladies and gentlemen, that is not going to work in an era where the Transformers comics are absolutely doing such a great job and showing us what good Transformers can actually be. So do the smart thing, Skydance Paramount. Adapt the comics and find somebody besides Michael Bay to do it.